that was a big one for me. And like if you hold trauma, it like kind of breaks your energy. Like even if you become high vibe, you would like revert to this low state, and like you have to keep a higher baseline, I think, to really start manifesting in the world. Like you don't have to be super high state to start the process, but with trauma, it will break your state, right?
Yep.
And then that's what then you revert back to that. At least that's been my experience.
Yep.
And again, I guess it's a good time to promote Eric again. I'm gonna put it on the screen here. Eric did help. Like I had energetic blockages, especially during the last 3 years. I held on to things, and I was so angry at like everybody for just being sheep, and like I literally had like I wake up with like heart palpitations, like even though I was fairly high vibe compared to others, I just couldn't let go of like the actual anger I had for all my friends and families like going through like such like being such like sheep basically, right? And it drove me insane for years, and I tried different things, didn't really work. Yeah, shameless plug again. Eric Mace at Mace Life Catalyst. He helped. He just called me out of the blue after I emailed him. And he's like, "Man, if it doesn't work, if I don't help you, I'll give you your money back." And so I recommend to others, talk to him if he doesn't help you. If you're holding on to trauma, energetic blockages, you're looking for somebody, reach out to him, figure out what he does. If it works, great. If not, don't do it. And he won't charge you if he doesn't help you. Anyways, quick plug there. Thought it was pretty good, but it's true. Like whatever you have to let go of trauma and blockages. And so there are many methods. I've tried talk therapy. That didn't really help me for years. For you, any recommendations? Like, was it meditation? Like, was it journaling? Like, are there things you recommend for people in terms of like processing trauma or?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to go with something that's body based. Body based is really that's where the trauma is stored. All your baseline programming is held in the body. So even if you're not like massively traumatized as such, you still hold your belief system in your body as well as your biofield around you. So you got to deal with that physiological side of it. And the body is a pathway, a major pathway into the subconscious mind and the programming. So there's so many things that you can do. I mean, I have my own method which I use inside of Evolve Yourself. I've seen sound healers use tuning forks to great effect with people. But also there's the issue of, you mentioned earlier, the mammalian brain and the reptilian brain, which Carl Buchheit calls the creature brain. And I guess the mammalian brain's part of the creature brain, but there's a very primitive aspect of like the lowest parts of the brain that are looking, like scanning constantly for threats, for ways to survive, fight. It's like that fight flight. How do I get through this kind of thing? And what it does is it looks at, okay, am I alive or not? Am I alive? Yes. Okay, so therefore, this is the logic of this part of the sort of reptilian brain is, well, I'm alive, therefore whatever I just did is a successful survival strategy, and I need to keep doing that. So you can imagine, like, when people are babies, the first few years of life, they're incredibly programmable, incredibly impressionable, and whatever, if they survive that part of the brain's always going, am I alive? Yes. Okay, this is working. This is what we need. So even if they're born into a seriously dysfunctional family, like violent, abusive, as long as they're still alive, it sees all of that and goes, okay, this is our successful survival strategy. Mm-hmm. And that's why you see people go and recreate the same kind of family dynamics, 20, 30, 40 years later, because they learned on an unconscious level that is the way to get by and survive. So we've got so many layers and levels of programming that are in the way, and conscious mind willpower is so limited against all of that stuff. Like, it's so largely impotent, and that's why you got to raise that baseline you were talking about. You got to raise that baseline feeling state by doing this kind of work, the body work, and the getting into the subconscious nitty gritty. Otherwise, you're always pushing shit uphill.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. And for me, I kind of made the method myself, and it worked profoundly. I had a lot of trauma at a young age, and it was like seeing myself in the third person and like almost having a conversation. Like if I saw that person, like how would I give them love? Would I resonate and like understand what they went through? Would you forgive that person for what they did? How would you you know, and for me that worked a lot because it really kind of separated myself from like with trauma we try to personalize it, right? It's like my trauma, my pain, right? But it's like a pain that's being held, and a lot of it is this identification with it as like a personal thing, right? And
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen that. Like I had a friend who was like she had so much trauma that she carried with her everywhere, that it became like a companion. And one day she was like, she actually said to me, she actually admitted to me like I don't know what I would be. I don't know who I would be without the pain. And it was like one of those major moments where she finally admitted like the reality of what she was doing, and why, her behavior was so counterproductive, and self-sabotage. But yeah, the identification thing, and that's where stuff like meditation and expanding your concept of self and all that can be useful. But I think sitting in lotus position is generally, if you're talking about processing trauma, that's generally not super useful, because it takes you into expanded consciousness that then effectively dissociates you from the body, which is where the trauma and stuff is. So your body, it's like the body reprogramming that kind of needs to happen, as opposed to finding like these amazing transcendental states. That side of it's great. Like that's my foundation and where I come from. But it wasn't until I started dealing with the more kind of earthy physiological side of things, that I was able to, move through certain stuff, and improve the quality of my like general experience. And it was like, okay, this is very clear now that yes, the meditation transcendental stuff is super useful for expanding the identity, of self, but it's not going to purge the system, your human side, your human aspects of the garbage and the baggage.
yeah, yeah, well said. Yeah, I think, well, yeah, and holding trauma in the body is so true. I found like a lot was released naturally when I started to process trauma, but it's still stored almost like a, yeah, like a memory, like a hard drive or something. And so, yeah, like, would you advocate for, um, like, is it yoga? What do you think are good ways like that have worked for you for processing body trauma, and that would be like accessible for people?
Yeah, I mean, EFT is a really good one. There's a few different modes of that, which a lot of people rave about. Faster EFT, and there's different variations of EFT, which people can just go and investigate. Oftentimes, you'll find like free samples and instructionals and stuff. So yeah, that's short for emotional freedom techniques. I did about 6 months worth of body psychology, which had a physiological focus on working through that stuck energy, that stuck trauma and what have you. I think that was useful. Um, there's some more esoteric stuff that I also in October 2020 I started, was it 2020? I think, yeah, 2020. I started having like heart palpitations, heart arrhythmias, and all sorts of weird shit going on, and I didn't have a clue why. Like it was bizarre. And I went and saw a friend of ours who does kind of like, I don't even know what to call it, but it was kind of like a variation on holographic kinetics, kind of related. And she nipped in the bud, like with 3 sessions, probably 95% of the crap that I was dealing with at the time, which was amazing. And so, I mentioned holographic kinetics. That's another model. James Pask is a guy you could get in contact with, or the guy who created it is Steve Richards. And James is a mate of mine. He's just Steve's star pupil. So I found that quite useful as well. And talking of raising the baseline, I've done 2 sessions with James, and both of those sessions resulted in like an increased sort of baseline, like that fundamental level of sense of well-being was increased after both of those sessions, and it was sustained. It wasn't like a a dopamine hit or something. It was like this is the new reality now kind of thing. So I mean, there's so much stuff. Like breath work is huge. So many people have profound breathwork experiences, getting stuff out of their body because it's body based, right? So you breathe through it, you move the energy, you move the stuckness. And then, your plant medicine and frog medicine and all, all the fun stuff.